It is my honor to introduce you to Stuart Morris. Stuart is a neurodivergent dynamo shaping the realms of entrepreneurship, innovation, and life's most sacred moments. As a seasoned entrepreneur, tech inventor, TEDx speaker, and CEO, Stuart is literally changing the game in more ways than one, leading the world's top celebrant or officiant training program. Stuart's work goes beyond the boardroom. He brings comfort, dignity, and joy to families during life's most pivotal moments, from weddings to times of loss. But Stuart's journey has seen its fair share of challenges, from personal loss to late life diagnoses of dyslexia and autism. However, like a true alchemist, Stuart turns adversity into gold, transforming problems into prosperous ventures. Whether he's flying solo across the Atlantic or revolutionizing how we honor life's milestones, Stuart Morris's story reminds us to embrace both the highs and lows that make life worth celebrating, and it is my honor to have him as the guest today on this episode of the Power Transformation Podcast. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of the Power Transformation Podcast. I am your host, Alethea Felton, and I am so excited to have you join me today. If this is your first time in the Power Transformation Podcast community, I welcome you with open arms. I'm so grateful that you have decided to tune in, and just not tune in. Guess what else? Go ahead and subscribe, give it a 5-star rating, and write a review. I definitely value your feedback, and I thank you for your continued support. I want to dive right into this episode. I have an incredible guest today, and you heard a little bit about him from the intro, but I want him to speak for himself, and that is Stuart Morris. So I always begin this podcast with an affirmation. Those of you who have been with me from the beginning realize the power of these affirmations is that we are speaking things into existence as if they already are. And I encourage all of you who are new to join right in. Even if you're not used to saying affirmations, I guarantee you that the more you say it, the more you believe it, and the more you will see things happening in your life and coming to pass. I will say the affirmation once, and you repeat it. I am empowered to create meaningful connections and celebrate life's precious moments. I am so thrilled today to have Stuart Morris here with us on the Power Transformation Podcast. This is going to be a fabulous interview. I have had the pleasure of speaking to him offline even prior to this interview, and I'm just so excited about him sharing his journey with us, what he does, and how he is truly a change maker today. So welcome to the Power Transformation Podcast, Stuart.
Thank you so much. I'm hoping I can live up to that introduction.
I think that you can. I, already enjoyed the fact that we met a few weeks ago leading up to this. And so I want to jump right into this interview. So I'm sure guests are always like, Alethea, what in the world are you going to ask first? So I always do a nice icebreaker question just so that we can get to know you better as a person outside of what we're going to talk about here. So, Stuart, this is your icebreaker question. Who is your favorite fictional superhero and why?
Okay, that has to be Neo from The Matrix.
Oh, tell us more.
Because he just breaks the rules. It just, you've told me the world is this way. No, it isn't.
That's right. That's right. He thinks for himself, doesn't conform. I love that. And so do you see a lot of Neo in you?
That would be presumptive. Yes.
Exactly. Okay. All right. So with that being said, Stuart, This is a loaded question. You can answer it any way that you like, but who is Stuart Morris?
Oh, that's a really terrifyingly complex question, and yet very simple.
Mhm.
Depending how long have we got? Did you say this was 4 hours long? Um, so my childhood was not easy. I'm just going to say that. There's a whole long conversation there.
Mhm.
And so I've struggled pretty much my whole life. And that has a whole load of psychological and physical impact. I am ADHD, so I need stimulation, I need dopamine. I'm autistic, so that also means at the same time, sometimes I need to withdraw from the world and just hide and quiet and calm.
Mhm.
I'm dyslexic, so at the age of 8, I couldn't read and write. So I was that kid at the back of the class, bouncing up and down, just not engaging with school. And all of those things combined together with some, when I was 16, I had an accident and pretty much died. In fact, I was declared dead, except I wasn't. I was fully conscious when I listened to a doctor tell my parents I was dead, which was not cool. And so ever since then, it's kind of been, no, I'm going to live life with my foot absolutely hard down on the throttle, the volume turned up to 11, because once you've been declared dead, it can't get any worse than that. And enjoy, and a lot of people believe in a life after death. I believe in living fully before death, and I wish more people would focus on the here and now rather than the hereafter. So to a degree, I'm quite driven, but mainly it's we get one life, and to at the risk of sounding corny, live it, and live it well, live it lovingly, live it in a way that benefits other people, live it in a way that leaves a good footprint on the planet, and a good footprint on people's hearts.
Indeed.
That was a complex way of answering your question.
No, but it does make sense, and I believe in the here and now and afterlife. But I would have to agree with you that although I have a belief in the next dimensions after this life, I think it is important to emphasize living fully now and living abundantly and making the best out of every opportunity here on earth. I think it's a tragic state of affairs when some people only have hope of what's to come. And I say, okay, you can have that hope, but also look at what's around you and to make this life incredible. And you've by far done that. And the thing about it is, Stuart, you have such an incredible journey and story as to how you got here. But in your childhood, what's very fascinating, and I think this can be encouraging for a lot of different people, is the fact that you lived with what a person might call a learning disability, but that can also be a true ability to help you go to the next level. So share with us about your journey with having some learning differences in your childhood.
I think the challenge is perhaps made easier these days because we recognize things like dyslexia and autism and ADHD, whereas when I was growing up, these things weren't understood, they weren't recognized. So you just got labeled the thick kid, the naughty kid, the kid that was always in trouble, the kid that couldn't remember anything. And so that became a challenge. But specifically, if we take dyslexia, there are plenty of kids out there, and adults, and everything in between, who could get a dyslexia diagnosis. What most people simply understand dyslexia as is a learning disability. Reading is hard. I am in my mid-50s, and I do not like to sit down with a novel and read it. It hurts my head. However, there are things that I can do that normal people, neuronormal people, simply cannot do, because dyslexia almost always has a curse side. You can't read and write particularly easily, but it has a blessing side where there is some other thing that you can do that isn't similar to the usual. So one of the classics is the ability to spot patterns, connections, almost an intuitive sense of how things work is a really common advantage that people with dyslexia, the upside is they can see how things work even without reading the manual or even without having to take it apart. So that kind of thing. The autism, again, that you've met one autistic person, you can't describe them all just because you've met one. Everybody's different. Some are so severe that they really struggle to integrate into normal life. If I'm going through an airport, I actually find it really, really difficult to go to a concert or a gig or to the theatre. It just becomes overwhelming. If I'm trying to travel, and bear in mind I travel a lot, I have to plan it so that I can build time in so my brain doesn't get fried. Going through security, there are going to be a lot of people giving me different instructions. Are we taking shoes off? Are we not taking shoes off? Okay, you never know. For a normal person, neurotypical person, whatever the phrase you prefer is, it's slightly stressful. For an autistic person that's got used to dealing with it in a particular sequence, suddenly the sequence has changed. TSA at this particular airport have got a different set of rules to at that airport. It becomes disproportionately stressful. And so I have a series of things that I do. Right, I'm going to get there. I'm going to take this slowly. If all these people are rushing past me because they're undoing their belts and they're doing it much more quickly than me, let them. I just need to slowly go through this process, go through the thing, put my arms out. I have bunch of metal in my legs because of injuries. I'm going to set the metal detector off. It happens. Build the time in to just stand still, let the guy do the thing with the sensor. Oh yeah, you've got metal in. Yeah, fine, off you go. So you have to find ways of living in the world as it is. And I think the other thing about autism is a lot of people mask. They pretend to be normal. What's expected of me here? What this is expected of me here. I'm going to behave that way. It's incredibly tiring. And it's taken me until my mid-50s to go, you know what? I am me. If the expectation is this, if it's really, really important, okay, I'll knock myself out and try and be that. But actually, I'll be me. So one of the things that I say to people, autistic people tend to have a subject that they're really passionate about. Mine is aviation. If you ask me about general aviation, I will quite happily talk to you about airplanes and my airplane, the airplane I'm restoring, for hours.
Wow.
So you need to be prepared to tell me enough.
Exactly.
Go, okay.
Wow.
So it can go both ways, but I think the other thing is for all of us, grace, compassion, understanding that other people are different. We can have different skin color, we can have different hairstyles, we can have different gender. There are a whole other load of other things that are going on inside your brain that are also different that people just don't get. And I think that's given me an appreciation of other cultures and other people who don't share my gender, people who don't share my sexuality, people who don't share my political or religious views. We're all on a spectrum somewhere. And it's that understanding that the world is a complex place. People who say, oh no, there's a simple answer to this, they're missing the point.
And I really appreciate how in depth you went with that, because I think just by looking at you or even having a conversation with you, a person would not necessarily off of the gate say, oh, he has autism. No, because you're right. It's literally a spectrum and there's so many different variations of it. And as I shared with you, in our meet and greet weeks ago, I'm a former public school educator here in the States. So I taught students over the years and went to school with kids and friends of mine who are diagnosed with autism, but it looks different in everybody. And in terms of the whole airport and TSA things, I have ADHD, and so it's not autism, but you have to be very step by step with me, because if not, it's going to be information overload. And I'm like, what do you want me to do? But I appreciate that, because instead of necessarily viewing those as deficits, they can really be a superpower. And that even leads me to talk about how your newfound understanding of your neurodivergence, how did it influence your approach to business as well as your personal life?
So certainly, if we start with business, and I'd encourage anybody who is listening to this, watching this, who has a child with any kind of neurodiversity, help them find their superpower, work out the things that they are really, really good at, and celebrate out of them. Just find the things that they're good at and major on those. Don't make them try and be something they're not. So for me, that freedom to say, you know what, I'm really bad at, for example, I'm really bad at day-to-day management of my businesses. I'm a leader, I'm not a manager. My team will follow me through hell and back, but they'll starve on the way. So one of the things I had to understand was I need to hire managers who will make sure that everybody gets fed, payroll happens, the tax return gets done, all of those things, not my strength. And so actually, as an entrepreneur, it's quite difficult to say, you know what, there are bits of running this business that I am not well suited to do. That's different from not good at, just not well suited to do. They're stressful, they wind me up. And so I actually relatively recently hired a managing director, CEO, as you would put it in the in the US, to do the day-to-day management of the businesses. And that's released me to be the creative, to provide the direction. Guys, we're going in this direction. And then the CEO actually makes sure that there's all of the other stuff, the procedural stuff happens underneath that. And I think so that's a big thing to do in businesses is find what you're good at and major on that, and hire other people to fill the gaps in, because otherwise your business will always be limited by your ability and your skill set. And if you want it to grow beyond you to be something bigger, then you're a bit stuck. In terms of personal life, well, you could look at my failed marriages and say, he's clearly not terribly good at the whole relationship thing. Or you could say, I didn't understand what I was doing or who I was and how I was showing up in those relationships. It takes two to tango and all of that. You can't blame one partner or the other, unless you really can. But often it's a failure of both partners to engage fully with one another and say, what are your strengths? What are your strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are your weaknesses? How do we as a couple combine to become something that's greater than both of us? How do we back up one another's weaknesses? How do we major on one another's strengths? And I think that's something that certainly in the last few years, so I got my autism diagnosis 2.5 years ago. I've got my ADHD diagnosis late last year. That's something that I've been really looking at as I think about new relationships is, okay, let's be upfront about this. If the person I'm sitting opposite at the restaurant is going, I'm not up for working with an autistic ADHD bloke as a man, as a partner, fine. Let's have a nice dinner, have some good conversation. We don't ever have to speak again. But if you're upfront about it and they go, okay, you're interesting. I'm up for this challenge. I'm going to go home and Google relationships with autistic ADHD people and start asking questions, then, full disclosure, we have a conversation to have. So, yeah, I think it's always best to be upfront. It's always best to be questioning about yourself. I'm really inquisitive about, okay, how am I feeling in this situation? How am I responding in this situation? Is that how I want to respond, or am I people pleasing? Am I enjoying this date, or am I not enjoying this date?
Exactly.
Am I pretending to enjoy this date because I don't want to let this person down? Actually, when you've been masking as an autistic person your whole life, you're trying to make sure everybody's having a good time, and you forget your own desires and needs in this. So it can be really challenging in a personal life to actually say, no, I'm going to have to cope with this date not going well because there's some aspect of this person's way in life. They vote for the other candidate. That may be something you're unwilling to put up with. Okay, go home alone. It's okay to say enough. Rather than people pleasing and finding yourself beginning a relationship where you're thinking, I'm not sure I want this relationship.
Yeah.
So
I think it goes back even to the adage, to thine own self be true. And you have a certain level of awareness that I think some people have, but others don't, is that you have a clear view on assessing who you are, your life, how things may or may not go. And for you to even say, if I heard you correctly, the autism diagnosis wasn't necessarily in school, but it was during your adulthood, correct?
Yeah, 2.5 years ago.
Yeah. So with that being said, Stuart, here you are, this successful entrepreneur doing great things. What led you to even get to the point of getting that diagnosis? Was it something that you sought after yourself, or people around you, a doctor? How do you decide one day, I want to get tested to see?
One of the common things about autism especially is depression. And I've struggled with depression my whole life. And I'm very open about that. It's a thing. There's no point in hiding it.
It sure is.
And so I was talking to a therapist, and we were unpacking your life. And she said, have you ever been assessed for autism? No, never thought about it. And so we went through the process. And for me, I found that very freeing. It was, now the world makes some sense. Now I'm able to say, okay, I see why my journey through the world has been hard. I see why I got fired from that job, or I see why I left that job, because I couldn't fit in. I didn't fit in. I didn't understand my own self. Having said that, I know a number of people who I'm 99% sure are autistic, who have no interest in getting a diagnosis from themselves or for seeking to understand themselves to that degree. For me, if I understand myself better, I can exist in the world better. I can perform better in whichever way I choose. To thine own self be true. I'm reasonably competitive. Let's not beat around the bush. As one of my sons puts it, Dad does not believe in winning. He believes in total annihilation of the competition. Now, I don't feel it that way. I don't need the other guy to lose. I just need to know I've done my best. If I'm trying to run 100 meters against Usain Bolt, I know who loses.
Yeah.
That'll be this guy. But I need to know that I've run it as hard and as fast as I can. So one of my businesses, we're in a very small niche, but we are the world's largest in that niche. Not because I need to beat the competition, but because I need to know that we are the best we can possibly be. We have the best products. We sell more than anybody else. We do it really, really well.
Yes.
If you want to buy a sports car, do you buy a Ferrari or do you buy a Ford? Now, Ford makes some really interesting vehicles, but if you had the choice, you'd have the Ferrari, wouldn't you?
Of course. Of
Yeah.
course. Yes, exactly. And you took such a humble approach in what you said about something that I want you to actually tell more and more people about is the fact that, yes, one of your businesses has that largest niche. And I think that was a really interesting journey that you shared with me offline about how you got into that and what that is. So, share with us a man with dyslexia, autism. I'm going to go back to the injury that you talked about earlier because that is just mind blowing. But tell us about more. So now this business where it's the largest niche and what you
Largest
do
niche,
and
yeah.
how, yes, and
So
how you,
I'm going to try and summarize a very long story.
of
So
course.
in 1995, I was teaching Sunday school, and a young woman who I'd known since she was very small, she died of leukemia at the age of 20, and I'd known her and all of her friends, as they'd grown up. And I took her funeral. I officiated her funeral. It was very, very difficult. I had had no training. It hurt like hell because I knew and loved her and all her friends. And ever since then, within the church that I was then part of, I took ceremonies occasionally. So, I'd got my day job in the tech industry. I got my own business in the tech industry, and away we went. But occasionally, I'd take a funeral or a service or preaching, teaching, all of these things. And then through a mental health crisis, I woke up one day and realized I didn't have my faith anymore. So, okay, I now live in a world where I don't believe in God, but people still need the rites of passage, and I'm too ill to go back into running a tech industry business. So I need something that I can do just for me to pay the bills, because I don't do unemployed. I will always be doing something. And so I started with the help of loved ones, doing ceremonies, taking funerals, weddings, for people who didn't have particular church connections. And what I found was, yes, if people are a very strong part of a church or mosque or temple or whatever their faith is, then they will have a ceremony within that tradition. But for a huge proportion of the population, they don't have a really strong faith in a particular identifiable way. They have probably some kind of messy mishmash belief system. I don't really care what they believe. What I care about is their journey through, for me, funerals in particular. So I started taking funerals as my full-time day job. So I was taking 150 something funerals a year, so 3 a week. And, on average in the UK, there's about 20 people at a funeral. So that means that 3,000 people a year were going to a funeral that I was sitting down with the family, talking to them about their loved one, and creating a celebration of that person's life. So we then have a ceremony which wasn't the standard Christian funeral ceremony that we're all so familiar with. It was a real celebration of this individual. It was half an hour, or whatever length they wanted, of celebration of their loved one's life. And so that's what I was doing. It was great. I could manage it. I could manage my recovery. It was good. And then people started saying to me, "Will you teach us how to do this?"
Wow.
And I was like, and I knew there were other people training. So I was like, no, there are these other companies training. You don't need me to teach you to do this. And then people, no, we want you to teach us how to do it. So 2018, I find, okay, I'll run a course, I'll just run a course. And almost by accident, I started this business, hired a couple of friends to come on and help, and it grew and grew. And so now here we are 6 years later, the largest trainer of officiants, as you would say in the US, celebrants, as we would say outside the US. So I run a course every month, and we take a group of people and we teach them for 5 days everything they need to know to deliver the most outstanding weddings, funerals, baby namings, whatever kind of ceremony you want. And it's incredibly fulfilling. And one of the things, the reason why I said, when it was just me, I can touch the lives of 3,000 people a year by giving them the experience of a really positive funeral, a funeral that really celebrates the life of the person that we're saying goodbye to. When I look at the people that I've trained, and we do the math, which we did a couple of months ago, in the United Kingdom, close to 1 million people a year receive or go to a funeral led by somebody I trained.
Oh, wow.
So by doing this business, my ability to touch lives has scaled from 3,000 people a year, if it was just me, to all of my trainees going out into the world. Some of them do lots of funerals, some of them don't do any funerals. So you do the averages. Just close to 1 million people a year are blessed by that better experience. And actually, if you have a good funeral, your experience of grief changes dramatically. A wedding, you can have a spectacularly opulent wedding. You can spend as much as you want. Is that marriage going to last any longer than a marriage that the entire wedding was $1,000? No, it's much more about the people. So everything we do as celebrants, officiants, the rites of passage exist in every culture around the world.
That's right. Yeah.
Welcoming a baby into a family, welcoming a child into adulthood, engagement, marriage, and then at the end of somebody's life, death. So, it's hello, I love you, and goodbye. And if you want to sum up celebrancy, that's all it is. It's helping a community say hello, I love you, or goodbye.
And I love that you all use that term. When you shared that with me, I know a lot about different things, but in total transparency, I never knew that's what you call officiants. And personally, I like celebrants because I can speak for Black American culture, is that when we have funerals, we'll typically call them homegoing services. And while they may be in a church, the funeral program that you open and read says celebration of life. It's not meant to be, of course, people will feel sad because it's a loved one, but
Absolutely.
It's a celebration. So it's stories of their life. It's upbeat songs. It's, photo collages. It's laughing at the repast after the burial. And so it is a celebration. And when you think about all of these other events, having a child, getting married, these are celebrations. And I think that if a person had a celebrant coming, it could shift a perspective, which leads to this question. While you meet with families or clients in the moment, Stuart, what has been some of the feedback about the transformative power that you or the people you train has left with those particular individuals?
So I have a trainee who we trained in about 4 months ago. And I'm just trying to remember when she trained. And she contacted me 2-3 weeks ago saying, I've just got my first funeral. She's got her first booking. She's really excited. And it wasn't an easy situation. The circumstances surrounding this person's death were complex. And so, a little bit of extra coaching. This is how you might want to handle that. And yesterday, she sent me a message saying, I did it. You could see the pride in, and I said, how'd it go? What was the feedback like? And she said, they came out of the chapel and they hugged me.
Oh.
And you think, okay, here's a family, a grieving family. They've gone through a traumatic death of a loved one. And the person they want to hug at the end is the celebrant, the person that helped them through the celebration of their loved one's life. And that just says it all. You get these families. I have families that I've taken the funerals of 4 or 5 members of their family, as the grandparents have died and other situations, and they've said, just you know us, you know what we want, you know how our life is, and you will help us through this.
That's right.
And a really sad example. About a year ago, actually, it was a year ago. I had a funeral director come to me, say, "I've got this family. This one's going to be hard." The girl was 13 years old. She was born with a life-limiting disease. So her mother always knew that she would be burying her daughter. Can you imagine the pain that mother has felt for 13 years? I know at some point I will bury my child. And, I go and sit down with this mother. Tell me about your daughter. And I spent 2 hours listening to stories of this young woman who had all sorts of challenges in her life, mental challenges, physical challenges. She needed constant care, but she laughed, and she loved Harry Potter, and she was kind, and all of these things. And so I went back to the field director. I said, okay, here's an idea. How about we do a Harry Potter themed funeral? And we went back to the mother and we said, okay, we think we can do this. And the mother's like, yes, absolutely. So we took the hearse and we turned it into the Hogwarts Express.
Oh, I love it.
We put little favors on every seat with jelly beans in them to be the jelly bean type things from Harry Potter. The funeral director was dressed as Harry Potter. All of the staff were dressed as different characters. We decorated the chapel with the symbols from the houses, and the coffin was all decked out in Harry Potter themed stuff. And I walked in dressed as Dumbledore, which was total madness. And I had just at that point recently got a new dog. So she was 10 weeks old at this point. She walks in next to me carrying the elder wand in her mouth. Oh. Now, that was a risk. It was a big risk because I expected it to get chewed. So that mother wept her heart out. And who wouldn't? But she also laughed and laughed and laughed as we told all the fun stories of her daughter. And at the end of that funeral, she came out with her makeup all over her face because she had sobbed and sobbed and sobbed, but she had a smile on her face. And she gave me a huge hug, and I ended up with mascara all over my shirt. That's fine, it's an occupational risk. And she looked me in the eye and she said, "Thank you for celebrating my little girl."
That's right.
And reminding me of the joy that she brought. There were 200 people at that ceremony. That little girl had touched a lot of lives, and we reminded all of them of the joy that she was, and that allowed them to temper their pain at her death by thinking, she touched lives in a really powerful way. So that's a really powerful example of what we can do.
Oh my goodness. That is the perfect example of it. And hearing how not only the celebrants you train are changed, but the lives of the people you serve. Stuart, in what ways has doing this work changed your life even more?
So I lost a child many years ago. And we didn't have a funeral. So there was just the hospital took her away, and that was that. One of the things that I'm able to do in helping this mother say goodbye to her daughter, or worse, in many ways, I do funerals for babies, stillborn or who've died very soon after birth. And you sit down with a mother and father who've just lost their baby. There are no words. There is nothing you can say. I'm sorry for your loss. Really?
That's right.
No. Do not ever say that.
That's right.
For me, do not ever say that at all. Yeah, it's just like, I'm going to use the F word and breathe.
That's so insensitive.
It's just don't even go there.
That's right.
So if I can help that young couple celebrate in any way, even if it is in silence, to say goodbye to their child, to acknowledge the loss, the death of the dreams. Every parent thinks of, the day my little girl will go to prom, the day my little girl will get married, whatever it is, or my little boy, the first day at school, the graduation dates. All of those dreams get lost in that moment when the midwife or the doctor turns to you with a look on their face that is hell on earth. So how has it changed me? It's enabled me to have some sense of closure on my own loss, but it's also enabled me to see incredible bravery in the world, incredible selflessness in the world, that people, you can bring out the best of people in the worst of moments. It's reestablished my belief in humankind. I mean, we see some horrific things going on in the world, and I don't want to get into politics, but you see politicians who are claiming one thing but blatantly, obviously doing another or believing another. Actually, when I watch a 94-year-old woman kiss the coffin of the husband she married when she was 20, and they've 74 years of marriage, 74. Wow.
Yeah.
Just wow.
That's a wow.
Yeah.
It really is.
She said to me, I just want to say a dignified goodbye to the man I have loved for a lifetime.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it's given me hope, even in the worst moments. Sitting with the parents of a 18-year-old who took his own life. Let's celebrate your son. Let's find, and every suicide I've ever taken a funeral for, that person was described by their friends and family. He was the life of the soul of the party. She would always help you. She was always the one who would, when I needed a friend, she was always there for me. There's so much to be celebrated in the people who feel. And sometimes it's those people who feel too much are the ones that we lose too early. But they're the ones who change the world. They're the ones who were there at 4:00 in the morning, listening to their friends, pouring their heart out. Let's celebrate that. Let's remember the goodness. Let's remember the way they changed the world, the charities that they supported, the good work that they did. And remind their friends and family who are grieving, they were an amazing human being. There's that adage, that the light that burns twice as bright burns half as long. I'm not a fan of that one, but it does bring comfort to some people. So for me, funerals are a really cathartic thing, but they're a way you can change the world. And I always joke, if you watched our late Queen's funeral, there was an hour of marching. The British Army marched really, really well. Then there was an hour of ceremony in Westminster, and then there was another hour of marching. And in all of those 3 hours of pomp and ceremony and big tall hats and all the rest of it, they spent 58 seconds talking about a woman called Elizabeth. 58 seconds talking about the achievements of the longest reigning monarch in British history. That was not a funeral. That was a statement of state. It was a state funeral. It was a statement of the Church of England saying, look how important we are. And that's why the family had a separate funeral in St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle, just privately, for them to say goodbye to their mother.
That's right.
Their sister. It doesn't matter who you are somebody's child, potentially somebody's parent, somebody's sibling. And so funerals and weddings can be as huge, as grand as you want them to be, but actually they're about the people. And that reminds me that everything we do in the world, it's about the people. It has to be about the people. And when people start, we've got this problem in the UK at the moment where we've got these riots that are being driven by far-right ideology that they've decided that the person that committed these murders of these children was from a particular religious group. Actually, we don't know who this person was. They may or may not have been from this particular religious group. But that doesn't justify Nazi salutes in the streets. It doesn't justify burning police cars. It doesn't justify throwing bricks through mosque windows. Where does that make any sense at all? So intolerance, wherever it's coming from, whether it's race-driven, religiously driven, politically driven, those things result in nothing but pain, nothing but more loss, nothing but more death, nothing but damage. And actually, human beings, we're all human beings.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry, you got me off on one there.
No. It's fine. And I would have reeled you in if you had gone too far off. I think, though, that was a perfect landing only because of the fact that you're right and that people's lives matter. And I think that if more people realize that, it would make the world a much better place for everybody. But I like how you give people hope in the midst of their sorrow, and you change a person's perspective or mindset on what a celebration of life can be, is that you can have a baby, you can have a wedding, and you can have a funeral. And although it hurts, you can still walk away with some hope and not feeling hopeless. And I also thank you for bringing up the fact of people being mindful of what they say to a grieving loved one. I've had my share of grief, gone through grief therapy and everything, and people mean well by it, but there are some phrases that are just not good to say about, I'm sorry for your loss, or, well, they are in a better place. Like, don't say that, because in the moment we want our loved one with us, and we have the right to grieve in the way that we choose to grieve. And I so wish that I had time to go into so many more aspects of your life. There's so many layers, and I could have honed in on entrepreneur and your past life in tech and just so much more in terms of what you've done. But I think that the heart and the crux and the core of who you are in helping people, and, the airplane passion and even your injuries have all created this. And you share much of that in your story, One in a Million Life. And so I want you to just tell us a little bit about what that book is, and also how can people go about purchasing it, as well as how can people connect with you on social media, LinkedIn. How can listeners and viewers connect with you, Stuart?
So the idea of the One in a Million Life is that so many people get to their death without actually having lived. And I've taken, I've lost count, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, possibly thousands of funerals. I've heard so many stories of people's lives, and I can honestly say that most of those people didn't truly live. They just drifted through their life. They didn't make decisions. They didn't decide, what is it I want? They kind of accepted what turned up. And so for me, the inspiration for the idea was actually choose the life you want to live. It's not about living a life with no regrets. I have plenty of regrets. But when I get to the end of my life, I don't want those regrets to be things that I wish I'd done. So a really good example, 10 years old, I saw a particular aircraft. It's a Beechcraft Bonanza V-tail. And Google it, it's beautiful. It took me 45 years, but I now fly that airplane. It is, so that 10-year-old, his dream came true. Not by accident, not by luck. I didn't win the lottery. I made it come true. And so the whole concept about the 1 in a million life is being intentional. Where do you want to live? How do you want to live? What do you want your family life to look like? What do you want? I'm not interested whether you want to be outrageously wealthy or whether you're content with whatever it is you have. This isn't about wealth. It's not a wealth generation scheme. It's about an intentional life scheme. So what I've developed is a system that allows people to run their own business, because that's my entrepreneurial background. How can I build a business which supports the life I want to lead, rather than just this middle management job in a corporate cubicle somewhere? And how can I make that transition without risking the children's education or the college fund or the mortgage or these kinds of things? So that's the first stage that we're working on at the moment. So the website 1inamillion.life is growing at the moment, and that's the best place to find me. And so the course, How to Start Your Own Business, the book, which I haven't finished writing yet, but
okay.
No, we'll get there. We'll get there. It'll be out soon. You can register your interest, and we'll get you this stuff.
Yes.
But then there will be more layers on top of that as well, not just about starting your own business, but other aspects of life. And I've got this little team of people working on an entire way of being in the world. It doesn't define a particular political view. It doesn't define a particular religious view. You cultural view. You bring who you are, and then are intentional about where you're going. And that's the core of it. Choose where you're going. Don't just get blown like a leaf on the wind with no choice. And I think that's the story of my life. There was a period where I just was blown left and right and left and right. No. From here on out, whatever comes at me, the one thing I have is a choice of how I respond to that thing. So I have a trajectory, a place I want to get to, a journey I want to travel. Challenges, joyful things, sad things will come. But I get to choose how I respond to those things. New opportunities may crop up, and I may change my trajectory because, hey, who knew about generative AI when I was a 16-year-old?
Exactly. Exactly.
So you respond, but it's intentional. It's always about living the life that you choose to live. I hope that whoever you are listening to this, will choose to live a generous, kind life, a life where love for your fellow human being, regardless of their creed, color, race, religion, whatever it is. I don't care who the person in front of me is. They deserve to be loved. They deserve to be cared for. They deserve to be helped if they need it. They deserve to be educated. They deserve to be safe. And that, I think, is something that, so if you like, that is my creed. Yes. But within that, wherever you want to be. But it's 1 in a million life is about choosing the life that you want to lead and being intentional about making it happen.
And Also, Stuart, I can't recall off of the top of my head through your website, but is there also a link or blurb in there about people who may want to get training from you to become a celebrant?
Yeah, all of that's linked off the
Okay,
site.
perfect.
So
Perfect.
that's a
Yeah.
whole different business, but yeah, it's all out the back there.
Of
And
course. And a car would be honking in my background. I'm not sure if you hear it, but I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm at my house in DC right now. So I'm in the city in DC, not on the outskirts. And I'm like, who in the world car alarm is going off? But anyway,
there you
anyway.
go, it stopped.
Yes. Oh,
Oh, that's fine.
goodness. But as we close and it stops, so great. Okay, so as we close here, Stuart, I'd like to just leave with this question. Although you've spoken of failed marriages in the past, the beauty is you are a father. And you did share with me that one of your sons is actually a chef at a facility you own and etc. So my question is thinking about your children, but also the thousands of people that you've trained and the millions of lives you've influenced globally. Stuart, what do you desire your legacy to be when it's time for you to leave this earth?
Oh, that's a really complex question. I want to know that I have left the planet a better place for as many people as I possibly can. There will be those who I have wronged. There will be those who I have hurt. There will be those that I have insulted, either intentionally or accidentally. But fundamentally, I want to know that the world is a better place because I stood upon it. And that there are those people who are healed because of some word I said, those who are happier because of something I did, those who are safer because something I did. Yeah, I just want to leave the world a better place.
Mm-hmm. And you've certainly left it a better place. So for me, even in the short time that we've known each other, I think you're doing incredible work. And I have such an affinity for people who are intentional about providing light and hope to others. And I want to also leave you with, regardless of your choice in leaving the church or traditional religion, I want to assure you that you are definitely making a profound influence on people of all backgrounds, regardless of their walk and their practice. And I can say, as I had shared with you, I'm a follower of Christ, but even outside of that, just who you are as a human being is what the world needs more of. And it is truly an honor knowing you, Stuart Morris. And thank you for gracing us here on the Power Transformation Podcast. Thank you sincerely.
You're very welcome and very generous. And if I may, one thing for me, the two key verses in the Bible, Jesus was asked what true religion is, and he replied, feeding and housing the widows and orphans. And the other one, the woman caught in adultery. Now, let's not discuss where the man involved was.
Of course.
And why he's completely absent from this story, because that's a whole thing in itself. Christ knelt in the ground. He drew in the dust. He loved her. He loved her. Whatever she was accused of, whatever they were going to stone her for.
That's right.
He loved her and he saved her life.
That's right. He who is without sin cast the first stone.
Yeah.
And
for
that
me,
is love. Yes.
Having lost my faith, those are the two things that I still hang on to: feed and house the widows and orphans, and love people.
That's right. That is absolutely right. And to continue to have faith in the humanity that you are exhibiting and continue to show that through the works that you do. And I continue to hope nothing but the best for you. And I just look forward, as I said, in the future, when I travel to the UK in the future, it will be wonderful to meet you in person. But thank you again, Stuart. And I know everybody is going to gain something insightful from this profound interview. I am so happy to have had Stuart Morris as my guest today. I hope you are as inspired as I am by Stuart's incredible journey, his resilience, innovation, and passion for celebrating life's most meaningful moments are truly remarkable. And remember through Stuart that every challenge that we face holds the potential for growth and transformation. And what Stuart's journey also teaches me, and I encourage you to do, is to keep chasing your dreams, cherish life's precious moments, and always believe in the power of turning adversities or difficulties or challenges into something that can have lasting meaning and beauty. So we will close with our affirmation. I ask you to please connect with Stuart. But as we close out, I'm going to say the affirmation once and you repeat it, and join us again for another episode of the Power Transformation Podcast. It is because of you that it's able to be a success. We are still in the top 5% of podcasts globally. And I am believing that it will be a top 1% podcast in the future. Let's say the affirmation and say it like you mean it. I am empowered to create meaningful connections and celebrate life's precious moments. If you enjoyed today's show, then you don't want to miss an episode. So follow the Power Transformation Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you usually listen, and remember to rate and review. I also invite you to connect with me on social media at Alethea Felton. That's at ALETHEAFELTON. Until next time, remember to be good to yourself and to others.